Welcome to the second call in our winter-spring 2000, sorry, this is the third call, in our winter-spring 2012 Lunch and Learn series called Attendance Issues in Teen Foundations. I can't make it today between SAT class, soccer practice, and the Bears game, plus no one will drive me. I think that's our record for the longest call name. Today we're going to hear from two seasoned Teen Foundation professionals, Celeste Albert from the Jewish Community Youth Foundation at the Jewish Family and Children's Service of Greater Mercer County, and Hallie Shapiro Devir from Voices, the Chicago Jewish Teen Foundation at the Jewish United Fund Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Chicago, about how they handle attendance issues in their respective programs. We know that today's teens are overcommitted, and yet good attendance among Teen Foundation participants is important for team building and a healthy group process. So they're going to help us hear about this issue and how they've handled it in their respective programs. Let me just preface the call by saying that these programs are both out of institutions that for the teens enroll in this specific program, and so all of the things that we'll hear about today are based on that. So if you run a teen foundation out of a different kind of setting, perhaps a Hebrew school or a Hebrew high school or a regular day school where the kids are already enrolled in a different kind of program, these issues might not be 100% pertinent, although I'm sure you can find takeaways. I just wanted to preface that way because I noticed that we have a couple of new people on the call today. So that way we're all familiar with what angle we're coming at this with. So before we go on, let me tell you a little bit about our presenters. Celeste Albert is the coordinator of teen programs at the Jewish Family and Children's Services of Greater Mercer County. She coordinates the Jewish Community Youth Foundation and Gesher L'Kesher, a Jewish peer leadership program that trains teens in the 11th and 12th grade from all backgrounds of Judaism to lead group topics on hot topics through a Jewish lens. Celeste received her master's in social work at Rutgers School of Social Work, and she's worked at Rutgers and at Stockton College as housing director and counselor, where she conducted a variety of programs and training sessions on the topics of peer education, academic achievement, programming, student development, team building, resume writing, interviewing, stress management, relationships, and advising student groups. And Hallie Shapiro Devir is the Assistant Vice President, Israel Experience and Youth Initiatives. She oversees Federation's Camp in Israel scholarship programs and initiatives for young families and youth, including volunteering, philanthropy, and leadership development programs for teens. Hallie began her JUF career in 2000 as an associate director for the Israel Experience program. Her previous experience includes working as a program coordinator for the Children's Scholarship Fund and as a preschool teacher. She also taught religious school and acted as the assistant to the director of education at Beth Israel Religious School in Portland, Oregon. Hallie earned a Bachelor's of Arts degree in English Literature from Brandeis University. So now that we've heard a little bit about both of our presenters, at this point I want to invite you to open up the link to the materials, which you should have received with the call and information for today's call. If you are not sure where that is, you can also email Naomi at jfunders.org, and you'll receive a bounce back with a link to the PowerPoint. Hallie and Celeste will be referring to those materials, so it will be helpful to sit in front of the computer and follow along as they speak. If you're not able to do that, you can also look at the slides afterwards, of course. And so after the formal presentation today, we're going to have a question and answer session. So if you think about any questions while Hallie and Celeste are speaking, please send me an email. You can email me at naomi@jfunders.org with the subject question from and put your name in. During the question and answer portion, we're actually going to open up the line for those who have something to say, so we'll have you unmute yourself and be able to ask your question yourself. So be sure to send those emails, and we will make sure you have a chance to ask your question. So, again, my email address, naomi@jfunders.org. So without further ado, let me hand off to our first presenter, Celeste.
Thanks, Naomi. Hi, everybody. My name is Celeste Albert, and I'm the coordinator of teen programs at Jewish Family and Children's Service. Today, Hallie and I will be talking about, so if everybody can go to the second slide of the presentation, today's teen, calendar planning, attendance expectations, building a culture, evaluating our programs, empowering teens, and peer mentoring. I would like to thank the Jewish Teen Funders Network for asking me to speak today on this topic. It's something that our program has thought a lot about and have gotten a lot of feedback from different programs, so hope that you'll enjoy hearing some of the things that we've learned about. Before I start, I just wanted to give you a little background, if you can go to the next slide, about our program. We are a Jewish youth philanthropy program for teens in the 8th through 12th grades. JCYF is made up of 10 groups, so 2 groups per grade. There's approximately 160 teens in the program. Our program meets 4 to 6 times a year. Teens can enter in the 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. We have a progressive curriculum that each year the teens are in the program, they meet less because we build on the program materials from the previous year. And as mentioned, older teens meet less, but with a longer overnight meeting. As Naomi mentioned, there are many different types of programs that meet more or less frequently. So depending on your program might depend on how you establish your attendance expectations. So if you go to the next slide, there was a study out called Engaging Jewish Teens, and there's a link to the bottom of the slide for the study. And I thought it really confirmed a lot about the teens that are in our program. They had a section called Reality of Teens, and it discussed what are teens' priorities. And, you know, no surprise, sports were on the top of the list. And I thought it also validated the title because 2 out of the 3 conflicts of this teens are sports, the soccer and the Bears game. And the study mentioned that Jewish activities were at the bottom. And it was funny, when preparing for this presentation, I spoke to a group of teens about this. And something that struck me was there was a situation where teens were presenting a program, and a lot of the teens that they were presenting to didn't show up. And so we had an educational conversation about this. And they mentioned to me that any time when they were overwhelmed with school, work, activities, that their Jewish activity was the first one that their parents allowed them to miss. And this was something that ever since they were young, they were used to missing. Teens are looking for activities that are fun and opportunity to learn new things and develop skills. And our programs definitely do this. So I think it's very important when promoting these programs is the skills as well as the Jewish knowledge and opportunities that they allow the teens to have. Other things that consume the teens' lives were school and homework, as I'm sure we're all very, very familiar with. And they mentioned getting into a good college. And something that I always let teens know, whether you're in 8th grade or 12th grade, that this is a great activity to put on a resume. And a lot of our teens write about their experience in this program for their college essays. And it's also a great resume builder. I think it's also important, knowing this, that we educate teens and parents, and that each meeting that we have is an important to attend because there's specific goals and outcomes that come to the meeting. You know, a lot of times, and I'll talk about it later in the presentation, reminding teens about time management and, you know, making this commitment a priority. If you go to the next slide, I think attendance starts with great calendar planning and trying to avoid conflicts. So I think it's very important that we know our teens and why do they miss. It's also important, what I do is we already have our calendar for next year. I contacted all of the schools, agencies, synagogues, and I asked them for their calendar just to see what's been planned. And then once we know the certain dates, including school breaks, exams, holiday, community service events, then we put our calendar around those dates. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's a challenge, and we can't always hit everybody's spring break. We deal with 23 different high schools, and so it's a challenge to us, but if there is a conflict and we have a few for next year, we will notify the parents ahead of time that, you know, our end-of-the-year program will be the Sunday starting of the spring break, so please plan accordingly. If you go to the next slide, spread the word. I think it's important once your dates are set to email your calendar to synagogues, youth groups, community agencies, Federation, JCC. If your community has a community calendar, post those dates on the calendar as soon as possible so people know when the meetings are so that they can program around your dates. We will send the calendar at least 5 or 6 times during the year, starting with the application, and then we'll do a lot of different, what I like to call touches. So we'll email the parents, thanks for registering, hope you're having a great summer, here's the calendar. And then, looking forward to a great year. And the beginning of the year, we email the calendar again because I think you can't send the calendar out enough. So if you go to the next slide with expectations, I think it's important up front to let the parents and the teams know the attendance expectations of your program. On our application, we have a question that says, how will you prioritize your commitment to this program? Because we want to let people know up front that this is part of the program. We also have a parent orientation. So once the teams are accepted, our first meeting, we invite the parents to attend parent orientation. And this is another great way that we can communicate to them our expectations on attendance. We put together a comprehensive handbook. We felt that it's very important to communicate a lot of our policies to the parents, and it's been a helpful tool to them. I'm going to quickly talk about some of the topics that we've included in our handbook that have been really helpful to us. So we talk about absences and that it's a requirement that they attend all the programs. If they can't, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few moments, that they have to attend either a makeup meeting or complete a makeup assignment. And we mentioned to the parents and the teens that if there are extenuating circumstances, this makeup experience assignment is not the same experience as if you're in the classroom. I'm a firm believer that these are like once-in-a-lifetime opportunities where you're going to have the discussions with the teens and the kids, and that if you're not a part of it, it's really hard to recreate. We also have a section on attendance, and we just mentioned to them that each session builds on the meeting before, and it's important to participate in each of the aspects of the program. And each meeting has certain goals and outcomes that need to be achieved. So, for example, if a teen skips the site visit because they have too much homework, their last meeting was preparing for the site visit, and then the next time they attend, they're going to be presenting on their site visit, which if they're not a part of, they're going to feel left out and not have the same information as their peers. We also talk about how we put our calendar together, letting parents know that we do put our calendar together based on the different high school calendars and holidays, and if there are conflicts, that it's important to notify the staff immediately. Very quickly, one year, we had our check ceremony all in place, and then in September, I contacted the school in June, and they told me this is the date of the senior trip, and then over the summer it changed. And so it was really great that one of the teens pointed that out because it was the same weekend as our check ceremony, so we were able to move the check ceremony. But I thought it was an important point that even though schools have their dates set, things can change last minute, and it's really responsibility of the parents and teens to also communicate with you if there are extenuating circumstances or something in the community has changed, so that if you can change the date ahead of time, you're able to do that. I also talk about late arrival and early dismissal. Sometimes we'll get a teen who comes in late for whatever reason or has to leave early, and we really try to discourage that because each meeting is action-packed with a lot of different materials, and that it is disruptive having a teen coming late or leaving early. But if they have to do it and it'll get the teen in the door, we will try to make some accommodations for that, but we really discourage that kind of participation. We also talk about our site visits and overnight trips, and that I would say all our meetings are created equal. However, if you're going to be missing allocations or the site visit trip, it's not going to be the same experience, and it's important that they need to make every effort to do this. And we mentioned that you could call in, but again, it's not the same experience if you're attending. And then lastly, in the handbook, we mentioned something that it's imperative that teens make every effort to attend the meetings. And we put some examples out about the efforts that we're hoping that our teens and families commit to, such as managing school assignments, after-school activities, not scheduling important tests on those weekends like SATs, and, speaking to coaches and staff about working through scheduling conflicts. At the first meeting, the teens signed a Derek Eretz, and part of that is talking about the topics of being responsible and being a personal example. So there's ways to have the teens set standards within themselves about attendance and being there and part of the team. It's important to explain the importance of attending, because I think a lot of times teens think, if I miss one, it's not a big deal. But if they, I think, understand what could happen, that they might have a better understanding and might reprioritize some of their conflicts. And it's important that they're committing to this and that they're part of a team. And preparing for this, I spoke to a student who I said, she's really good at managing her time, and I asked her, what advice would you give to a teen that is committed to different activities, and how do you manage all your time and commitments? And she said that, look, this is a skill that you're going to need to develop, and high school is a great time to start learning to manage your time. So I think it's really good, because I think if a teen commits to too much and they're not successful in completing commitments, I think that says something. So I thought her advice was really spot on. If you go to the next slide, clearly define your attendance policy. I can't reiterate enough having parents and teens notify you as soon as possible when conflicts arise. And it's important that they know how to contact you in an emergency. And we had touched upon, leaving early and arriving late. Because anytime a student misses, and I don't know why, I will call the parent just to get a further understanding. And sometimes through these conversations, it's very helpful to me and the teen to try to increase communication with the conflicts that they're trying to navigate. If you go to the next slide, when thinking about this topic, this statement came to me: are all absences created equal? And if I had to categorize the types of absences that I commonly are confronted with, it's these three topics of unavoidable conflict. Once in a while a teen's bat mitzvah could happen on one of our program days. Or, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Aunt Sally's turning 100. Families from all over the country are coming, and it's in Florida. The other type of emergent conflict that I get, and it's rare, but something that I think we should all think about, is an unexpected emergency. I once had a situation where a student couldn't attend because they had to get their appendix removed. And these things do happen. And then the third, and this is something that I'd like to talk a little bit more, is about the learning moment absence where, I have too much homework, football's on, I'm bored. And this is the time that I try to speak to the parent and the teen about these kinds of conflicts and try to help them navigate and put in perspective some of these situations that they're in. And, for students that are bored, or maybe this isn't what they thought the program was about, I always tell them, look, you made this commitment, let's finish it out through the year and see how you like it. Because sometimes teens, it doesn't click to them until they finish a whole year and they are at the end program. So I think it's important to let teens know that let's just finish this commitment out for the year. If you go to the next slide, so after all these absences and policies, we started building a culture where, attendance is expected, but we've also put some things in place to assist families to remember some of the dates and try to get themselves organized. And I know a number of you probably do this already, but we always email the parents and the teams the Wednesday before the program, because we only meet 4 to 6 times, and so we would never want someone to forget that there's a JCYF meeting, so we will email them, and also for those that are texters, they can sign up and we'll send a text message reminder. And this is also a great way of building rapport. We have all of our program staff call the teams the Wednesday before also, so that sometimes the email didn't go through or it went in spam and I never got your email, I never got the text message, so at least there are 3 different ways the parents and teams will be notified about the meetings. And what's been great for us is that a lot of times if there are issues, they'll come up the Wednesday before and we have an opportunity to talk about it and see how we're going to navigate the challenges. I think it's very important to track attendance and follow up with parents and teens. So if a teen misses, they get a phone call that evening from the advisor letting them know that they were missed and that they will get information about their makeup assignment, and they'll also be expecting an email from me with the curriculum that they're missed. And it's not to be punitive, but it's important that they're caught up for the next meeting. This was the first year. We've had makeup experiences before, but this is the first year we tried to formalize it with having the teen either complete something in writing or attend a makeup session. And I have to say it was really good because it did give an opportunity for the teens who really wanted to come. So hold on a second. Excuse me. I gave an opportunity for the teams that wanted to come a chance to make up the work.
You want to take a second?
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Those allergies, I have them too.
And then lastly, if we go to the next slide, something else that was helpful to us was taking a look at our program, and that we're going to be in our 10th year next year. We're really excited about this, and I think what's really great about our program is that we're ever changing, and we take evaluation very seriously. And we evaluate our program on a number of levels. And what's great about the feedback we receive, hold on one second. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, is some of our best ideas come from feedback. So we have the teams evaluate the program every year through written evaluations. But we also have the parents and the staff also provide us feedback online. And we also interview teens. So it's another way of, excuse me, I'm so sorry. So it's another way to get more feedback. And it's, I think, important to have a focus group. Our youth advisory board serves as a focus group, but sometimes we'll pull teams out one-on-one who we think could benefit us with their feedback. And the last point I wanted to talk about was making sure that the staff is creating an engaging environment in the classroom. And I think if you have an opportunity, if you're not the ones facilitating, to really observe the advisors and just making sure that they're not getting complacent or they're just going through the motions, because this might be their 5th or 6th year facilitating the program. And, it might come down to talking to them, to making sure that, they're doing what they're expected to do and that they're really engaging the teens and creating a fun and educational environment. And I think don't be afraid to solicit feedback if, let's say, attendance might be an issue, and that some of our best conversations that we had were discussions with educators, staff, parents, and partners. So, and now I'd like to turn the program over to Hallie.
Thank you so much, Celeste. I'm just going to interrupt Hallie for 1 second and remind everybody that if you have any questions or comments that you want to make, you can email them to me. Let me know your name, and I will open up the line to you afterwards so that you can ask your questions to Hallie and Celeste. So, again, my email is naomi@jfunders.org. Thanks. Hallie?
Thank you so much. And Celeste, thank you. That was such a great presentation, and I'm going to try my hardest not to be repetitive. If you turn to the next slide, I just want to give you a little bit of background on our teen foundation, which is called Voices, the Chicago Jewish Teen Foundation. We're in our 8th program year this year, and we have usually 20 to 30 teens per year. This year, 28. Participants can be any grade in high school. Voices participants are expected to make a contribution to the grant-making pool, and this year we're suggesting $136 per person, but they don't have to. They don't have to give that much. And they have a base of $25,000 to give away. So as an example, this year they'll have about $29,000 to give away between their base and their own contribution. The teens meet 9 times at a minimum over the course of the school year. This year we introduced an opening retreat, which was a full-day session. But in general, we meet once a month, sometimes twice a month, for 3 hours on Sunday afternoon. So go to the next slide. This year, for the very first time, we have an alumni program, which is running simultaneously with what we're calling now Voices 101. So our alumni serve as their own foundation, but they also serve as peer educators and mentors for the Voices 101 cohort. They meet monthly on their own, and then they attend the Voices 101 meetings, where they facilitate discussions, lead activities, and serve as peer mentors. They're also fundraising, and they have a match. It's 1.5 to 1. So they expect to have a total of around $8,000 to allocate this year. Celeste has been so thorough, so I thought I'd take a few minutes to talk about the way that we've employed some specific strategies within our program. On the next slide, I want to underscore the importance of looking at school calendars. Here in Chicago, our very biggest problem is that city schools tend to be on a different break schedule than suburban schools, neither of which coincide with the Jewish schools, which can really make scheduling a nightmare. We also look at the community calendar to see if there are any big Jewish events, and we reach out to the regional directors of the major youth movements to find out when their Shabbatons and conventions are planned. We try to find out potential conflicts as early as possible so we can set the schedule as far in advance as possible, knowing that sometimes we'll have to change a meeting date, and usually that happens at least once in a year. On the next slide, a few years ago, we had some very obvious attendance issues, just a few teens who didn't seem to be taking things seriously. Something that really worked was to ask the participants themselves what the consequences should be. In those days, we were making allocation decisions by majority vote. So the participants suggested that anyone who had missed more than 2 meetings would have lower voting rights. That is, they'd have less say in how their money was allocated. But they accomplished this in a really interesting way by giving everyone who had missed 2 or fewer meetings an extra vote. They all really liked this solution because they felt like it rewarded good attendance rather than punishing poor attendance. And that year, a small handful of participants wound up with only 1 vote, and they really, really regretted it. Over the next several years, we suggested that attendance policy at the beginning of the year, and the participants all agreed, and we had much fewer problems with attendance. Our group leader, Stephanie Goldfarb, is in her 2nd year with the program this year, and she's implemented some really positive changes. One major change was switching from majority voting to consensus, but that meant that the voting solution wasn't going to work. So knowing this, she worked really hard to front-load information so that parents and participants would know from the beginning what was expected of them. If you'll turn to the next slide. We now have not 1 but 2 places where students and parents are asked to specifically commit to the program requirements. And I played with the highlighter thing in my on the computer, so it's not really highlighted for them. It's just highlighted for you. First, in the application itself, students and parents are each asked to sign a statement acknowledging that participants need to attend monthly meetings, complete assignments, and participate in a group volunteer project. And then we take it one step further and ask parents and teens to sign a participant contract. And if you'll turn to the next slide, you can see it there. You can see on the slide that we include information about attendance as well as expectations of behavior during and in between the meetings. We've tried to use language that emphasizes the importance of each participant to the overall success of the program. And it helps that Stephanie is just a few months away from receiving her MSW, so she's able to use all that great language of empowerment. Besides having parents sign the contract, we've also found that copying parents on every single email has been very helpful, and you can turn to the next slide. First, it keeps parents in the loop so they know what their kids are doing, and prepares them to ask really good probing questions after the meeting. Second, it eliminates the excuse that the teens did not get an email from us. We know that someone in the house is aware of the next meeting. The teens who are most likely to want to skip a meeting are those whose parents, in air quotes, strongly encourage them to participate rather than finding the program on their own. They have the least buy-in, at least at first. These same parents are very willing to drive their children to meetings as long as they know where and when they will be held. Another structural change that's really improved attendance is dividing the teens into committees. Each one is focused on a different area of interest. Although part of every meeting is the whole group, much of the time the teens are broken up into their 5 committees. And absence becomes very apparent when you're one of 5 or 6 teens on a committee, as opposed to one of 25 or 30 in the room. Not only does the committee process give the teens more responsibility and influence on the program, it's had the added benefit of providing low-level positive peer pressure. The teens don't want to disappoint each other, and they also don't want to make more work for anybody else. On the next, no need to switch the slide. As Celeste said, sometimes absences are unavoidable. In those cases, Stephanie has arranged a phone call with the participants to fill them in on any information they need to know from the meeting. Because of the way we've structured our alumni program, they serve as secondary staff members, and Voices 101 teens also know that they should contact their assigned alumni even before they reach out to Stephanie, both to report absences and to get filled in on anything they might have missed. Voices is enjoying a lot of success. Again, underscoring Celeste's point, part of that is because we've been very responsive to teen and parent feedback, and we're constantly working to make the curriculum strong and engaging. However, we found that making the teens responsible to one another has virtually eliminated attendance problems. Not to say that no one's ever absent, but now they tend to be excused, unavoidable absences, medical emergencies, conflicting family events, as opposed to I am bored or I am watching the Bears game. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you. It was a very interesting presentation. I just want to remind everyone that if you have any questions or comments, you can email me at naomi@jfunders.org. I also want to invite you, if anybody would like to share how their program handles these issues, we're happy to hear from you so that everyone can hear that there may be different models. We're all learning from one another. I would ask you to email me to let me know and then to keep your comment to under 2 minutes if you'd like to share with us. So our first comment is actually from Valerie Gintis. So Valerie, you can press *7, which will unmute yourself. Valerie, are you there?
Hello?
Valerie, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Perfect, great.
I was very excited that this was the topic of the conference call because in different years we have big attendance issues and then small attendance issues, and we've done 2 things that I wanted to share with the group that have been incredibly helpful. The first is similar to the presentation. We now use teen staff, and I use them as my quote-unquote bad cop, where they do the reminder calls to other teens, and if teens miss, they actually do the follow-up with the teens. So it's less like mean mommy caught you not showing up, and it's more my peer and mentor is catching me up so I'm part of the group and also reminding them of the expectations. The other thing that we just implemented this year, which I'm so happy that we've done, is I was completely sick of the I didn't get the email, I didn't see it, no, my parents didn't get it either, no, we definitely didn't get that email conversation. So we started using Constant Contact as our tool for all communication with the teens. So we have the teens on the list and the parents on the list. And even a simple meeting notice goes out in our newsletter format. And what is great about that is we can then go look at the analytics and we can see what emails bounced, we can see who opened emails when, we can see how long they looked at it. And once I told the teens I could see that behind the scenes, I haven't had a single teen say I didn't get the email. So that has been incredibly helpful for us identifying what the communication problems really are, and also for the teens feeling like if they say they can't sort of say, oh, I didn't get it, because we can see if they got it, and that has really transformed our attendance significantly.
Valerie, thank you. Thanks for sharing lots of different theories. If anybody else has any, and Valerie, let me just ask you to press *7. You'll mute yourself so we don't have too much background noise on the call. If anyone else has questions, again, please email me at naomi@jfunders.org. Comments also. And now I'm going to ask, Stephanie Zelkin from JTFN has something to share. So Stephanie, you can press *7.
Hi, I wanted to ask Celeste and or Hallie to just comment on this. If you've had kind of worst case scenario of, I'm just thinking about what happens when your funder or your board chair's kid or somebody who for political reasons needs to stay involved in the program is the kid who you're having a lot of attendance challenges with, and how you've handled that.
Hallie or Celeste, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think just having a great relationship with the parents and the teens, and just reminding them, unfortunately none of us can go to these people's doors, knock on the door, and hold the teen by the hand and say, look, you're really making a bad judgment by watching the Giants game. You really need to come to the program. I think there's only so much that we can do, and I think as long as we are engaging them in dialogue and being developmental with the parent and the teen, that's all you could do. And so, I think the worst case would be if that teen is also very disruptive. And we did have a teen that we would have parent conference, and just to try to see what would need to happen in order to maintain the teen for the year. And then we didn't have to terminate them from the program, but I think it's important just to have that dialogue, because there also could be other issues going on as well. That's another point I wanted to make, is that I think you need to take each situation case by case, and it's not a cookie cutter situation. I mean, some of the teens do come to us with other issues or other situations. It could be a social situation where they don't get along with somebody in the group, to I don't have any friends, to my parents are making me. So I think it's just important to try to get to the root of the problem and just have open dialogue.
Here in Chicago, we've definitely had issues with board members or influential people in the community sending their children to the program, and then they don't take it seriously. We've had some offline conversations, depending on who the person is. Sometimes I'll go to someone higher up than me in the organization to have a discussion with them, but we really do try to be open with the kids, implementing some of these policies where they're signing and initialing things that says you have to attend, and now that we have a much more peer-oriented leadership structure where the alumni teams are responsible, the kids are much more responsive. But, just like Celeste said, I really do think it has to be on a case-by-case basis. We've certainly had in the past someone who should have, by all rights, been asked to leave the program and was not, just because of who their parents were. And then we just try to minimize the issues within the group and make it as good of an experience for everyone else as we can.
Thank you both for answering that honestly. Obviously, these things are tricky and sensitive at times. I'm going to ask Joey Avron to ask his question for us. So, Joey, you can press *7 to unmute yourself.
Hi, Celeste and Hallie. I'm wondering how many of your teens are involved for more than 1 year, and do you find that after a certain point or a certain year that they lose that excitement?
In Voices, this is our first year of having an alumni program, and there are 8 of the 25 teens from last year who are participating. In past years, we've allowed some people to repeat the experience, but because it was not, like Celeste's group, a progressive curriculum in that with each passing year they were learning something different, we tried to minimize it. Quite often it was the younger teens who wanted to come back because they felt like they would get more out of it after a first year where they were too nervous to talk or, they just felt a little bit overwhelmed. Now that we have the alumni program in place, we're going to be facing this issue this year because we have a number of alumni who are not seniors and they want to come back. And then we have a whole bunch of Voices 101 kids who want to be in the alumni program for next year. So we're going to have to address this issue and make sort of a Voices 301, I guess, for the double alumni, and then a Voices 201 for the first-year alumni, and then the Voices 101.
Wow. I guess you see how Celeste's program has grown to so many years.
Yes.
Celeste, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah. So our program, we have a class 8th through 12th grade, and we will take new teens in the 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, and if a teen joins in the 9th or 10th grade, we will provide them the materials that they've missed so that they're, quote-unquote, caught up. We found that the teens in the 8th grade year are there. Some want to be there, but some their parents made them. They didn't quite know what it was. And we find that in the 8th or 9th grade year, we might have a few people decide to leave the program. But we will take on new teens, so I would say our numbers would either stay the same or increase. But I would say by the 2nd or 3rd year, the teens that sign up want to be there.
Okay, great. So it sounds like over time it really keeps the ones that are most interested more than them getting bored. I'm just summarizing. Okay, so I think our next question is from Josie or comments, it appears. It's from Josie Ballin. So, Josie, you can press *7 to unmute yourself, and Joey, you can press *7 to remute yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention I love the idea of constant contact, and unfortunately, I'm not sure if on an ongoing basis, since my group only meets, I guess, about 4 times a year, and as an ongoing expense, I'm not sure if constant contact would work for us, although what I'm about to say may sound like perhaps we should put this funding into constant contact. However, I've just found that good old-fashioned snail mail is the best way to reach everybody, and especially now that households are getting much less snail mail, our mail stands out, and my attendance has been much better since I went back to using sending out flyers and postcards. And I address it to the teen, but the parents are seeing it because they're the ones who check the mail.
Great, Josie. Thanks for your comment. I don't know if Celeste or Hallie want to comment as well. Do you use any mail communication?
The only mail that we do is we mail out a Hanukkah gift. We give them a little package of 8 candles to serve as the shamash each night of Hanukkah, and attached to each candle is a different issue that they've been considering that year so that they're thinking about it. Otherwise, we've used email, but we also, I didn't say this in my presentation, I guess I should have, we use Facebook, and the kids are asked to join a Facebook group at the beginning, and although the parents are not in the Facebook group, kids who never check their email are always checking their Facebook. So that's been very helpful as well.
Thank you.
We would just mail out an invitation to the end of the year program.
Okay, so a little mail snuck in there. So I don't have any more questions or comments right now. If you have one and you didn't get the email, you can actually just unmute yourself by pressing *7 and share with us if there's anybody else. Anyone have anything innovative you've done in your program to address these issues? All right, then. So I want to thank everybody for participating in today's call, and especially Celeste and Hallie for sharing with us. The presentation was really interesting. I'm sure it gave everybody a lot to think about and some new ways to address these issues in their own programs. I know this was a hot topic. We had close to 30 people calling in today, which is really exciting. So thank you to everyone. So now I want to let you all know that our Lunch and Learns are actually going to go on a hiatus for a little while we prepare for our conference this June. So if you find Lunch and Learns helpful for your work, just imagine a few days of these kinds of presentations and sharing with your fellow Team Philanthropy professionals, which will be happening this June 3rd to 5th at the Carlson Retreat Center, which is just outside of Baltimore. It is our JTFN Institute 2012. So I want to remind everyone that next Thursday is the early bird price deadline, and after that date, the cost of the conference is going to go up $100 for all registrants. So if you're interested and you want to learn more before that date, make sure that you send me an email or give me a call. I'm happy to tell you more about it. We want to make it affordable for you, so register before the early bird deadline next week. And also remember that if you're traveling from a distance, more than 250 miles, I can help you figure that out. You're also eligible for a travel subsidy for up to 50% of your costs of traveling to the conference. So we want to help you get there, and we hope that everyone will be joining us. The Institute 2012 website is www.jtfninstitute.org. You can find out more specific information there, and you can also register. And you can email me at naomi@jfunders.org if you have any questions. I'm happy to speak with you. Aside from saving you money, it is helpful to JTFN for you to register early, because we ask during the registration process what you'd like to learn about or what you'd like to share about, and so it helps us plan our program to be the most helpful to you. So I'm going to unmute everyone now so that we can all say goodbye to each other, and you can join me in thanking Hallie and Celeste. Just give me 1 second. There we go.
The conference has been muted. The conference has been unmuted.
I got it now. All right, so you can join me in thanking Hallie and Celeste, and I hope to see your conference registration soon. I hope everyone has a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Very
Thank
valuable.
you.
Really appreciate it.
It was great.